Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by thelines.com, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy, Nate Weitzer, on the East Coast. Do make sure you're liked and subscribed to that page. We are going to be coming at you guys all season long during these weekdays, bringing you these game lines. Also have our fan favorite player prop video as well. That'll be bringing you 4 or 5. We'll see how many player props we feel like picking, at least 4, even in these 2-game matchups for you. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where all of our great written content and the like is coming at you guys all fall along into the winter of this regular season as well. Also have our great odds finder tool on there. That's where you can go ahead and shop all the lines to the best of your ability using that to find on those U.S. sports books. Also works very well for those player props. Nate and I definitely use that as we are choosing our player props each and every weekday. So Nate, we are going to kick things off with that East Coast Game 1, Philly at Boston. We've got the Sixers plus 2.5. They are plus 114 on the money line, and the total in this game sits at 216. So I know you and I have a sort of strict no bet on the totals for a little bit into the season because things can be pretty wonky at the top of it. So where do you start with this game for value?
Yeah, the Sixers are the value here in what's a toss-up game. I mean, in general, guys, we gotta take it slowly with the opening of the season, but there are some things to exploit in terms of one team being overvalued based on how they finished and what we saw last, which in both these games, we have a case of teams that were in the NBA Finals and another team in the Sixers that just kind of floundered out of the playoffs per usual with James Harden. But I lean towards, a team that finished weaker than the other team. I'm not going to take a team that's could rest on their laurels in any way. And obviously we know there are some issues with Boston that beyond the motivation factor here in terms of absolutely new coach in his first game. Robert Williams out indefinitely. That made a huge difference for them last season. They went 33-10 down the stretch, mostly due to Rob Williams being ridiculously efficient on both ends. They were 40-21 with him and 11-10 without Rob last year. Defensive rating about 3 points worse per 100 possessions. And it couldn't be more important in this matchup against Joel Embiid. I mean, Al Horford has done a pretty good job on Embiid. Those guys were teammates for a minute, and he is a really solid low post defender. But I still would be very wary about how Embiid is going to tip the floor in this matchup, how a rookie coach is going to set up the scheme to try and defend him. And just the Sixers' overall depth. This is what we talked about in the futures video with them, is they look really good right now on paper, that they don't even necessarily need James Harden to have a resurgence, but he's also gunning for his old glory to try to reclaim his name in some ways here. And reports are that he looks like he's much more fit. We could see closer to what we saw with the first 5 games of James Harden last year after he got in there after the All-Star break and the Sixers offense was flowing. So I think, as we said, no totals here, but I kind of like that Sixers offense to make the Celtics defense not look as good as it did down the stretch. Because again, Rob Williams, the actual defensive player of the year, not Marcus Smart, is out. And the Celtics have some moving pieces here to figure out in terms of how they're going to work Brogdon into the rotation and everything that goes along with that. So I'll take the Sixers at those odds. Absolutely.
Definitely. I can't agree more with everything you're saying, to be honest. Thank you for throwing in the bit about Robert Williams III actually being the defensive player of the year to kick things off and just, get over that Boston bias. You obviously are pretty objective here. So well done. I will say you spent a lot of time talking about how good the 76ers are. And I think that is really what I care about more than anything. I think game theory for this really, we're talking about somewhat of a hangover. It happens in every sport, right? When you lose the championship, the next year often it can be tough. We see more in the NFL than anything, but in the NBA, I think it's prevalent as well. They will really wish that they were celebrating a ring ceremony tonight, and they'll be watching the Dubs do that right after their game ends. So I think that's a bit of a letdown as well. everything else that goes into, the Udoka not coaching thing. Sure, it's not exactly like it happened yesterday, but it did happen with a month left before the regular season starts, and that changes a lot, right? It changes a lot of things that I'm sure how that locker room looks. I love the obviously addition of Malcolm Brogdon. I do think that figuring out how to get him involved in this in here is going to be key. Derek White and he they do some similar things. Obviously, he's a much better playmaker, but once that ball gets swinging around with all the players on there, we were joking in our fantasy basketball chat that we had earlier when it was going on. Like, are there enough balls to go around for Malcolm Brogdon to even see the rock on the Celtics team? So there's a lot to figure out there. And yeah, everything that you said about Philly, man, it's the combination of two huge stars, the expectation that Tyrese Maxey makes another leap, and the fact that they also have PJ Tucker now and that depth, right? So everything to say about Philly, there's no reason to think that they won't come out strong. If you look at their schedule as well, they have the C's, and then they go to they're taking on Milwaukee after that, at home for that one. But I think this is the one that they come out roaring, and that they really, really come out, and it's been circled on their calendar. It's the division rival, much, a little bit more important to them than that Milwaukee rivalry, if you will, which doesn't really exist. It's just a great matchup. So I think they're going to bring it for this Boston matchup. I think the things to look at too are going to be the performance of guys like James Harden. I think there's something to be said for his ability to show that he's going to be getting assists in this game. We'll see how they come out. I just think it's a big statement game for them, and the results are going to be, Philly being able to at least cover 2.5. I think I like them on the money line in this one, and for Embiid and Harden to really come out and make a statement about what they're expected to do this season.
You mentioned PJ Tucker, and I just looked up real quick. Tatum's career against the physical power forward, 16 points per game, 37, 22, 74 splits. Yikes. Yeah, man. I mean, that's exactly the type of physical guy who can get hands on Tatum and just get him kind of frazzled. In the past, we've seen. And then he starts putting his hands up at the officials every single time down, and then there's no Udoka there to get him calmed down and back on track. And as high as they are on Joe Mazzulla, I think it's going to take some time for the Celtics to adjust to him. Look, the Celtics, they thrived off points off turnovers last year. Philly, 5th fewest turnovers per game. Philly, a parade to the free throw line. And while the Celtics didn't foul many teams, they gave up 28 free throw attempts per game against these Sixers. The season split was kind of weird. First you had this 88-87 slop fest, which makes me lean towards under, if anything, when you look at these teams. And then the last meeting was right after the Sixers got Harden, and then they just kind of coasted into the All-Star break on cruise control and lost by about 50. But the other two games, one without Rob Williams, where Embiid went for 41, 10, and 5, were your standard, high-intensity Eastern Conference contenders. And the Sixers brought it on the road consistently last year after struggling away from home for a while. I think they're going to be very focused. Embiid leading the way. You talk about the money line. I would take that. I would take probably an adjusted spread that has the Sixers favored if that gets you close to plus 180. And then there's the FanDuel player performance doubles that we always like to talk about. Embiid double-double is plus 190 in the win. It's minus 250 in not the win. So, what are we talking about here? We're talking about almost a guarantee. We're basically talking about the money line in a different variety here, especially if the Celtics, continue to throw up misses at the rate that they did last year and in this matchup. So,
yeah. And I think to your points, like slop fest is what we expect here. And if that's the case, then you really got to like a team who has Joel Embiid and PJ Tucker on it, before you start liking a team who, look, they've got some hustlers, they've got some grinders. And I think to your point, the thing that really hits home is Tatum being locked up, getting frustrated by a guy like PJ Tucker. Yes, PJ Tucker is a good defender, very smart defender, much more than he is athletic defender, but that's what he relies on, is just as much the mental game of breaking down his opponent, getting them pissed off that he's grabbing them, and doing little things like that, throughout the game. So yeah, when it comes down to a slop fest, or at least something that's going to take a little bit more mental fortitude, I think, like I said, you like that plays right into what the Sixers are ready to do this season, which is play some bad boy ball and then just have some hoopers, on the wings, like they will have all over the place, including that addition of De'Anthony Melton that a lot of us really, really like. So yeah, there's plenty of ways to bet this around Embiid dominating a Robert Williams list team, as well as, the likelihood that Philly's able to cover. And I do like the opportunity for an adjusted spread there at like +3, like you said, gets you close to double your money there at plus 200 or so. This one is the second game of the opening doubleheader here. We've got the Lakers taking on the Dubs at home, the champs. Lakers are +6, plus 205 on the money line there for them. I don't think we're really interested in a Golden State money line. And a total of 225.5, which as our friend Mo likes to say, that seems pretty fair. That's what I have it at as well. So I don't know that we want to start touching totals here. But I think we both feel pretty good about the Lakers covering 6 points. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same logic used for the other game, is that you don't want to come into the season with recency bias saying like, oh, the defending champs versus a team that was horribly disappointing last year, and try to say that, oh, ipso facto, the Warriors are better and they're going to win this game. I mean, there's way too many moving parts in this to feel super confident about a big bet. Let's be real. I mean, it's the opening night of the season. The Lakers have a new coach. They have a completely new identity, even though there's not that much new personnel. But the new coach is going to be putting guys in different positions, and we're going to have to see how that shakes out. And then the Warriors had that ridiculous infighting situation where that could go one of two ways. I mean, that's a classic Draymond Green snafu, right? Where it's either they're going to rally around that and he's going to come out and just, shut down Anthony Davis and do his thing, or they're going to be a little out of sorts and a little bit of a championship hangover. So about
a la kicking LeBron in the nuts and that not quite working out in the finals.
Yes, we could see some of that as well, but I mean, that's why we set the odds where they are. I think the total is fair, sure, but I think plus 205 for the Lakers to steal this one on ring night, when you have, two of the best 15 players in the NBA. Still, there was a time where we'd say two of the best 5. That was probably 3 years ago. But they are. I mean, the question is about their durability and their longevity over the course of a season, but not if you take a guy to win one game and you give me LeBron, I will take him over Steph Curry still. And LeBron came to play.
I'm thinking.
Calculating, yeah. If you're starting the team, yeah. I still think, LeBron, who, we talk about narratives, the bounce back narrative, and even Russ Westbrook is capable of bouncing back from all the barbs he's taken and now expected to lead that second unit. No Dennis Schroeder to interfere with his minutes. It's going to be a second unit with Westbrook and Kendrick Nunn for the most part. I mean, maybe Westy starts and then they kind of stagger those minutes and let him get the ball in his hands and get free flowing. But that is apparently what Darvin Ham has really worked on in order to try to get him effective. Because, I mean, he's effective in that circumstance. He's just not able to play off the ball and able to play off those other two guys. But so what's the scenario in which the Lakers cover here? I mean, I think that's actually pretty likely. I think the Warriors, unless they have one of their patent avalanches, are not going to cover that 6. The scenario in which they win is a big line from LeBron, and you're getting really good odds. Plus 1,100 for the triple-double at FanDuel, but plus 1,100 for him to go 38-8 at DK, which is pretty close to what he's averaging for a while. I mean, the assists dip because the Lakers were so awful around him. But against these Warriors, he averaged 38.7, 12 rebounds, and 5.3 assists because nobody was scoring around him. But he really stepped his game up, and he closed the previous season, in fact, with a triple-double against the Warriors. Andrew Wiggins getting all those kudos for guarding Tatum in the finals, and if he thinks that it's going to go the same way against LeBron, fresh off of the offseason and his workouts, I don't think he's stopping LeBron. Draymond will be focusing on Anthony Davis. So I'm looking for a big LeBron game to at least keep the Lakers close, if not pull out the win.
Yeah, my only fear with the LeBron bet is the total, but I guess, and look, I love AD and LeBron together. Who doesn't? We just don't like what happens when you throw Russ into the mix and spice it up. And we don't like what happens when you don't have wing defense and spice it up that way by dropping, I'll still be talking about it forever, Kuzma, KCP, and Caruso. 3 incredible, very helpful wing 3 and D guys, and in Caruso, a guy spearheading your defense. So I just don't think they have that. And I don't think that they really, supplanted what they lost 2 years ago. So I feel like there's too many issues for them in areas that are just outside of having 2 very, very good versatile players who can play with the ball in their hands or not have it in their hands in, one of the two best players of all time, and then AD, whatever he is to you. So I really think that, it's a plus that Schroeder's not in. I think Juan Toscano-Anderson was a wonderful pickup for this team. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe not quite 3-and-D, but you basically have a wonderful defender and a rim runner at this point who can occasionally make a corner three. So I think that's exactly what they need, and that's what they need more of. And that would be my fear, feeling good about them outside of this one game sample. All of that said, I don't really love the idea of this being any kind of like barn burner, to use an NFL phrase there. So, even at 225.5, I once again, not touching it, but it does make me worry about guys filling up their stats. LeBron, I would prefer the 38-8 over the at plus 1100 on DK over the triple double at the same one. It just scares me with the couple two. I think 8 sounds about right. That's about what he was at when he and AD were winning the championship. If you'll remember, once again, he had a lot of 3-point shooting on his team. That helped a ton. So that's just, once again, a little bit of what you worry about with the assists. But this is a game that they've got circled. I think that the motivation is higher for them to really just ruin the Warriors' night before, I would say, the Warriors have the sort of chutzpah, if you will, to really defend their ring night. I don't know that they feel that much about it. Their other, their last 3 first games after winning a ring, they beat the Pellies in 15 after their first chip. That was still a very, very bad Pellies team with Anthony Davis on it, good for like 8th, 9th, or 10th in the West. Then they lost to Houston the next year, and then they beat a bad OKC team the year after. Not really covering in the last 2 games either. So like, I don't know that it really means much. I don't know that the offense is, it's going to be shooting as crazy as you think it will be. Obviously Clay was also hurt that season, so that's a bit of a difference, but I think there's a bit of a downturn expected for Clay as well, which is something that people are really honing in on. And I think the same way the Celtics were a team that we were happy to fade in game 1 with all of the issues they've had leading into this, game 1 during the preseason. Obviously, just as much, if not maybe more. I mean, they still have their head coach in the dubs, but one of their best players of all time in their franchise just clocked. They just paid $4 million, $140 million, $140 million for 4 years in Jordan Poole. So there's got to be some infighting. That's why I'm actually leaning towards Steph, which I think we'll be talking about in our player props as well.
Yeah, I mean, Steph, there's nobody that's really going to slow him down necessarily. Pat Beverly hasn't done a great job with that in his career. So, I mean, there is a reason these teams went over in all 4 of their meetings last year, is because the Lakers, like you said, don't really play good perimeter defense. The Warriors are susceptible on the interior. I think this is what I'm talking about with recency bias, though. Like, the Warriors were not necessarily a good team for most of the regular season last year. I mean, when Draymond was out, they were, in fact, below average. They had a long stretch of not covering or winning against Western Conference foes. And Draymond is a big question mark, not only because of what he did off the court, but just like his off-season training regimen. Like, I don't trust that compared to LeBron. I mean, he's just a total gamer who will step up when the chips are down at some point later in the season. But I don't trust Draymond to come into the season in mid shape here. And the Lakers, they do have a little bit more defense in Thomas Bryant. If he's another guy who has extreme injury history, but is starting day 1 healthy, they do have a little more shooting. Lonnie Walker on the team. That's finally Kendrick Nunn going to get active. So I do kind of see some points happening here. 225 is a little high for me to feel good about a bet, but that is part of what makes me feel confident that the Lakers aren't going to get blown out here, is that I think their second unit is going to be much stronger this year. I think Darvin Ham's going to do a better job of setting that up. And with Westbrook thriving in that role, hopefully they emerge from being a laughing stock and get closer to that win total, which is up at 45 wins now. People are expecting them to bounce back.
Yeah, we'll see. And it's all just going to depend on those 2 stars. It's going to depend on how Russ really integrates. And like we keep saying, look, I think there's some fun ways to bet on the NBA early. But there's a lot that we want to see before we start feeling really, really, really good about it. And it especially with this game specifically, I think there's enough that's different from last year. Like we were saying, I don't know that you can really rely on much of what you saw last year from the Lakers to use in this game at all. I think what we're using here is the history of a motivated LeBron James who's got to be tired of hearing the Steph talk at this point once again, the way that he won the title in 15-16 for his Cavs. So there's some opportunity here. I still don't love the construct of this Lakers entire rotation. But look, we'll see what the status and health is of its two stars. Even 1 year older for LeBron, what's he going to look like? 1 year smarter, you could say. But we'll see. Either way, it's going to be a lot of fun in these two opening games, Nate. So I'm glad that we've got them since we've only got two. We are taking a look at NBA player props, our favorite video, if we're being honest. No offense to our other videos. We just love the NBA player props and have a ton of fun with it. So we're going to look to continue our hot streak that we had most of last season and definitely finish strong as well, including those playoffs. Do make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. We're going to bring you these player props videos each and every weekday of this NBA regular season. Also, I want you to use that odds finder tool that Nate and I both use to look for our player props, so you're able to shop those lines to the best of your ability across U.S. sportsbooks. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into night one here. We've got two games to choose from, but I still think that we've got plenty of player props that we feel at least good about to kick things off this year. So why don't you kick us off with your first one?
Who else but Joel Embiid? Probably the co-MVP to our player props last year, next to DeMar DeRozan, of course, the real MVP. But Embiid, 30-plus points, I think, in 15 of 16 games at one point, was just carrying this team. I mean, they do have James Harden now, but he's not going to be forcing things. And we do expect a bounce-back season from Harden and expect Tyrese Maxey to continue to improve incrementally. But this is not a good matchup for either of those guys. I mean, going against Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, and the likes, I don't expect them to be thriving off penetration, and that's why the Sixers have leaned on Embiid basically every time they faced the Celtics in recent memory in his career, averaging 26 and 12, 34% usage rate in his last six, particularly against Al Horford, has been held below this prop, which is 26.5 points on DK. It's 27.5 on FanDuel, so you are looking at some value there if you can shop it around a little bit. But yeah, Al's held him to 25 points per game, still 15 rebounds per game. And we talked about the slow offensive start you can expect here in this Eastern Conference slobber knocker, if you will. So if you combine the points and rebounds, and I think it's 37.5 there, I think he's a pretty good lock for about 40 of those combined. But look, I mean, without Robert Williams, the Celtics are not going to be able to contain him completely. The one time he faced them without Big Rob last year, he went for 41, 10, and 5. That double-double seems like easy money right now. I mean, that's why it's minus 250. But if you take double-double in a win at FanDuel plus 190, probably our favorite bet or favorite angle here for that game, since we kind of like the Sixers already, and if you're getting them at 2-1 on your money with Embiid just to get that double-double, I'll ride with that all day.
Yeah, I'll ride with that. I mean, I know we have to put content out, so you have to talk about why you took Embiid, but really you could have just said Rob Will's not playing and Embiid's going against the Celtics. You know what I mean? It's kind of all right, sounds good. Let's go ahead and take advantage of that. To your point, I think the 40 points and rebounds combined is we love that. We just love Embiid in this game, right? Like we said, if we just want to find a spot for value, it's this man to come out and dominate, start his MVP campaign that I actually personally sprinkled some juice upon not too long ago before we started recording this at plus 550 there. So I feel pretty good about him, kicking things off well on the national stage for sure. I also feel really good about this guy here, Derek White, going under in his props. And honestly, this is one that I know you're already talking about to me pre-show, and I imagine in your article as well, because it's a guy who, he flourished in the playoffs last year. He was huge for them. He came up and looked really, really good, but he also just played above his pay grade. You combine that with the fact that Brogdon's here, and maybe Brogdon isn't expected to start, but I would be willing to bet that Malcolm Brogdon will be on the end of the floor and in almost all 5-man lineups to end the game when he's available and healthy. So, I think the projections here for White are very telling. As you spoke, you kind of have here in the show notes, 19 and a half minutes is his expected time, 9.5 points or so, his expected output. If you look at what he did versus the 76ers when he played them on the Celtics last year in February, 11 points, 1 board, and 2 assists in over 28 minutes. So there's just no way he's getting close to 30 minutes in this game with the guard rotation that they have now. So 16 and a half points, rebounds, and assists. He's just not going to get the time to put that up unless he just goes, pretty ballistic from 3. And that's something that I'm really looking for him to regress from. It was his hot shooting in the playoffs that is just not really who I don't think he's going to be capable of continuously.
Yeah, I don't think this is the matchup for the Celtics to go 3 guard heavy, which is what they're going to need for what White's going to need to really log 25 plus minutes if Brogdon and Marcus Smart are out there. The Sixers have size on the wing. Even when Harden and Maxey are out there, you're not going to want Derek White on Harden if you can help it. Yeah. I don't know if he played above his pay grade in the playoffs down the stretch, but he was very, very streaky, very boom bust because of that 3-point shot, which reportedly is a little bit more consistent this year. We're going to have to see it in actual game scenarios against the Sixers team that guards the 3-point line very well. Just the usage isn't there, and the potential for peripheral stats isn't great either. He's about 4 and 4 per 36 minutes, rebounds and assists. And if he's projected for about half of that, then you're saying he's got to get 12, 13 points in his limited time. And that's why I think we like the under there.
Yep.
Looking at another top play here that we mentioned in the game video, it's LeBron to come out in the opener and do what he does. The last year in this opener against the Warriors, 34, 11, and 5 on what's kind of a light usage rate for him, 32%. He went 13 for 23 from the field. The Warriors have nobody that's going to be able to stop him. If Draymond's spending most of his time on Anthony Davis, even better. In 3 versus the Warriors last year, he averaged nearly 39 points per game. Full stop. We're talking 33 and a half with the assists, too, from one of the greatest passers of all time. So, I think you can expect him to get 30 points in this opener and then, a couple assists on top of that. The Lakers supporting cast going to be a little better here. The Warriors do play with pace at home, which will help him get out in the open floor, get those dimes there. But, 38% usage rate when he played the Warriors. Really what we're looking at is just the King stepping up to defend his legacy in these types of big games. What he had like a 50-plus point game against the Warriors, and one of those to juke these averages. When he plays the defending champs and they're getting their rings and he gets to watch that pregame, I want some stock in LeBron to go out there and make his own kind of statement. And I can't believe how low this prop is for his points and assists.
Yep. And that's essentially what we're basing take the Lakers with the points in game 1 assessment, right? It's really the King coming out and just really wanting to spoil everything. I don't know about AD's level of motivation to do so, but I just know he's a very good player if he's healthy and on the floor and hitting shots, man. He needs to hit shots, and that'll obviously be huge for this points and assist bet for LeBron as well. But he should be getting some more weapons than he had last season for sure. So you got to feel a little bit better about that. And they do have a bit more of an interior presence at this point with the addition of Bryant as well. So that leads you to stay a little bit further away from the rebounds maybe than the assists, as he's expected to have the ball in his hand for a ton of time this season for sure. So let's finish things off with a prop that I just think is way too low. It's Steph Curry at 22.5 points. And you look at the situation with the Dubs going into this game, spoke about just the inner turmoil, if you will, a little bit. The reason that they've been good for so long, the lineup, the Bob Myers, the Steve Kerr, it's all great. Like their superstar is not a normal superstar. He's a guy that just wants to win and is very even keeled and even tempered. So I think that, if he's going to be, in there and everybody else is sort of, going, all right, we need this team to come together, find some camaraderie. Nothing helps like winning. Steph knows that, right? And he knows when he's needed to score. I think he knows that he's needed to score in this game to kind of come out and show everybody like, yo, you guys can talk about all the off court stuff you want during practice. But like when push comes to shove, I'm still still, a top 10, top 15 player of all time, top 15, just so no one gets mad at me, top 15 player of all time at this point with my 4 rings and my probably 350 to 400 threes that I'm going to make this season. So I'll just kick things off here by doing that against a team that in his last 5 versus the Lakers, 28 points a game, 6 assists, 5 boards, 35 minutes a game. He's for sure getting 35 minutes a game. He's for sure getting more than 22 and a half points if he does that. And 41.5% from 3 against a team that just doesn't have perimeter defense anymore to the same degree that they did when they won a championship. When you look at Russ, Pat Bev, who's been cooked by Steph over his last 5 versus him with this basically the same numbers he's put against the Lakers is what he's put up against Pat Bev the last 5 times that he's been, responsible for guarding Steph. Also, by the way, 30 for 31 from the free throw line in his last 5 versus the Lakers is Steph. So I love if he's going to get to the line 6 times for him to be able to get 22 points or, 16 or 17 more than that, right?
Yeah, and apparently just 4.5 threes is the number at FanDuel, and that actually swings from -115 to +110. So I will just take that. Looking though, the Lakers have held him to 4 or less now in each of those last 4 meetings. It's really been since 2017 that he hit 5 threes against these Lakers. So understand the juice there, but I think that's where he's going to be doing his damage, as he often does. And all the things you mentioned in terms of him just kind of putting those narratives to bed with an excellent performance here on ring night. I think I want the juice though with the threes and not just depending on him to score.
Get it, man. It's TNT, I believe in, and it's the stars out, right, on these big games. So I think everybody knows that when they play on TNT and such, they're basically campaigning for their awards and things of that nature in the public eye. So expect these stars to come out big, which is why the only guy we took an under on is Derek White, and the other 3 are superstars and Hall of Famers in Embiid, over for LeBron and over for Steph. So that is all the time we have in our first NBA player props video for this 22-23 season. Continue to follow along with us. Make sure to like and subscribe. We'll be coming at you guys with these every single weekday. So until we see you next, happy betting.